This is going to be my Premier League mid-season predictions on this video. The Premier League will return on Boxing Day on the 26th of December for the second part of the season after a month's absence of the Premier League due to the FIFA World Cup tournament. And we know that now the Premier League is set to return back after that month hiatus. And now let's look at the table predictions that I'm going to predict them from December all the way to the end of the season for part 2. At the bottom of the table, I have predicted to get relegated this season in the second half of the season. I reckon it will be Bournemouth will get relegated. I know that Bournemouth have done so well under Gary O'Neill, the guy who took the club as interim coach when Scott Parker was sacked way back in August time when they lost 9-0 to Liverpool. He has done incredibly well though, Gary O'Neill, to actually get some couple results behind them in the bag and even beat Everton that last game before wrapping up the World Cup campaign to begin. And they're going back into the second part of the season. They have actually done incredibly well in June with the World Cup campaign. They've got new owners in their team, and we know that the American consortium, Bill Foley, has brought the club from Maxim Demon, the former owner of Bournemouth, and also this actor, well known in America, has also taken a part of the ownership role at Bournemouth also. And they have done well in that aspect, but on the pitch and the players they've got in their team, I don't see them surviving. I think they probably will, get some couple of results, of course, in January, February, but they are one of the weak-linked teams in the Premier League, as I know about. But anything could change in January if they can buy some couple of signings and that. But I think that will be Bournemouth will finish 20th in the Premier League season. In 19th place, that I predicted in the second part of the season of the Premier League, is Nottingham Forest. Well, I did predict Nottingham Forest at the start of the season to finish 9th in the Premier League, as I thought, being away from the Premier League for the last 23 years and being promoted, and they really brought a lot of players in the summer transfer window. I really thought that they were really going to kick on and really put themselves in a very high position, Nottingham Forest. They've got a lot of history in the past, like Brian Clough, the manager who won them the Champions League 2 times in the 70s, and buying a lot of players in the summer transfer, like Morgan Gibbs-White, for example, Jesse Lingard as well, and buying the likes of a few players from Germany as well, and also a couple of players they've got brought from Nico Williams from Liverpool as well, and buying all these players in the team. 22 players have signed in the summer transfer window, not to do well during this first part of this Premier League season. I feel that's going to probably be a bit of a big issue if they do go down, because if they do go down, they're going to be struggling financially of the players they've signed in that season, and to get them going down to the Championship will be bad. But I do predict them to finish 19th. I just don't think Nottingham Forest will have a strong enough team to survive the Premier League, unfortunately, under Steve Cooper. So I'm going to reckon that 19th position will be Nottingham Forest of the Premiership in the second part of the Premier League season. In 18th position, to be predicted to be relegated with the likes of Forest and Bournemouth, I'm going to go for Southampton. Well, Southampton have done a change of management before the World Cup begun. Obviously, Ralph Hasenhüttl was sacked, and he was rightly to be sacked. Obviously, he's been given a lot of lives at Southampton, losing 9-0 twice in his managerial career. But his time was up and came to an end before the World Cup begun. And they got obviously Luton Town manager Nathan Jones, and we all know that he done incredibly well for Luton, to put them from League 2 all the way up to the Championship, and to keep them there as well. And obviously he's earned the right to be a manager in the Premier League for Southampton. But I did predict them to finish 18th at the start of the season as well in my predictions, and also as well in my halfway through this Premier League season. I think that Southampton, I don't think they got enough quality to survive. I know that I did use my calculator of the Premier League before I've done this video, and with the results that I put in, they're not enough to stay up, unfortunately. So, and I think that will be Southampton will be, after the last 11 years in the top flight, they're going to go down to the Championship. In 17th position, that I predicted, or the calculators predicted, to survive at the skin of their teeth from relegation, for this Premier League predictions is Brentford in 17th position. Well, Brentford have done incredibly well themselves in their second season in the top division. Obviously, I actually thought when the season's begun way back in August time, I thought that Brentford might struggle and could be competing in the relegation battle, but they were far away from that so far this season, even beating Manchester City in their last game before wrapping up to the World Cup tournament. And Ivan Toney was the one who was on the score sheet as well, and he'll be a key player, could be leaving in January. There's talks of Arsenal signing him if obviously when Gabriel Jesus is out now for a few months after that injury he suffered for Brazil for his country. But obviously for Ivan Toney, that'll be a big problem. If they lose him and the team don't get any results, they could be in big trouble. At the moment they're doing very well. They're up to 12th, 13th position in the Premier League as it stands, but at the moment we'll see what happens in January if they could actually keep Ivan Toney. But 17th position that I predicted, and also what the computer predicted, and it's going to be Brentford to finish 17th. In 16th position, in the second part of the Premier League season, I predicted, and the computer predicted, Wolves to finish 16th. Okay, they've got a new manager now. They've got a guy who used to won the Europa League for Sevilla way back in 2020, Julien Lopetegui, the manager for Wolves, after Bruno Lage was sacked and then had a caretaker boss for the last, the last month or two in charge, and he hasn't really performed well. They're at the moment, as it stands at the moment, they are bottom of the Premier League as it stands at the moment. But I just don't think they're going to get relegated. I don't think Wolves will. I think I did put a lot of results onto Wolves in the calculator as well in the games they'll be playing, and to have them to survive, and they will be surviving as it says on the computer, and even I think that as well. And I think 16th place will probably be a reasonable position where Wolves will probably end up at the end of the season. I don't see Wolves having this manager coming in from Sevilla and getting them up to the Europa League positions. I don't think that's going to happen this season, but I think them in 16th position, I think that's more of a healthy position to be to survive and have a Premier League for another season. So I'm going for 16th, Wolves. In 15th position of the Premier League that I'm predicting and the computer predicts for the second part of the season is Everton. Well, Everton at the moment under Frank Lampard, they did pick up 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 wins so far this season. They've picked up quite a few losses and a point as well, draws and that so far in this Premier League season. But at the moment for Everton, they have got until Christmas to really get themselves back in winning ways, because they did lose to Bournemouth in that game before the World Cup begun. To lose that game, and a lot of Everton fans were so upset with the whole Everton team, and they probably need more signings, I think, in January. But don't do what they did in January last year when Benitez was sacked halfway through the January market and Lampard came in. Didn't really have enough time to buy any players in. I think it was Dele Alli they've signed, and also Donny van der Beek on loan. And Everton had their transfers, bit of a car crash in that January transfer window. But as Lampard's as a manager now, and he's been backed with the owners at the Everton team, I can see Everton buying a few players in the January market, and I think they're going to put some results into the bag. They've got some very good players, as we all know Everton have, but they do somehow struggle a lot now, and they are deteriorating as a team. As I've always known Everton to be a top 10 team, or maybe a Europa League contenders, but now they're nothing near that. They're pretty much surviving from relegation. Even last year they came 16th last season and they almost got relegated, Everton. And I think this season to have them in 15th position in the Premier League is a suitable position for them going into May, and I think it will be Everton to finish 15th in the Premier League. In 14th position of the Premier League predicts, and the computer predicts, and I predict as well, will be Brighton Hove Albion to finish 14th in the Premier League. I know Brighton are doing incredibly well at the moment. They are at the moment 7th in the Premiership. The only reason they're going to drop down 7 places down to 14th, even though the computer, I predicted them and the computer predicts 14th position as well, is that I feel that the games they're going to play are going to be quite complicated for Brighton, because under Graham Potter, it was more known how the players can do with Graham Potter's formation, how the way he gels the team together. With this new manager who came in September after when Potter jumped ship to join Chelsea and managing now Chelsea Football Club, and now Roberto De Zerbi now managing Brighton Hove Albion, I feel for them they probably will lose their identity a little bit after losing Potter in September. And I think they can drop heavily down to 14th, in my honest opinion. I just think that their team's still good. They've got Trossard as well, scoring goals and they'll still keep that throughout the whole season, of course, unless Trossard or any other of the players for Brighton might leave in the January market and could go to a bigger team or top 6 team. So that could be a worry for Brighton. But however, at the end of the day, they have still got a strong enough team to stay in the Premiership, and 14th position is probably a reasonable position to be, just because they've lost their manager, obviously in September. Roberto De Zerbi came in. He's picked up some results, don't get me wrong, but sometimes as well, when there's another manager comes in and he's got to gel the team the exact way as Graham Potter did, I just think that they're going to struggle quite a lot. So I think it will be 14th, dropping down from 7th to 14th, Brighton & Hove Albion. In 13th position of the Premier League, but the computer predicts and I predict will be Leicester City, will finish 13th in the Premiership. Well, we all know that Leicester City have not done incredibly well at the start of the season. They were bottom of the league, they've been. And there was a lot of talks of Brendan Rodgers could be the the first guy to be sacked as manager for Leicester City. But the things have changed for Leicester though. They have picked up some results before the World Cup period begun. And obviously having Maddison, if you can keep him fit, he was actually injured a little bit sort of when he was at that last game against West Ham United before the World Cup begun. If you can keep him fit and keep him in the team, and also Tielemans as well, a guy that I like to mention could be leaving in the January market, will be a big issue for Leicester City. If they can keep Tielemans in the team and also James Maddison as well, that's good for them as well, for the Leicester City team. You know, they're starting now picking up form now after that poor start to the season. But 13th position is something that they will probably finish by. Can I see them in the top 10? Maybe so, possibly, if they could, you know, keep the players more fit and not any injuries. Maybe the World Cup players might be a problem as well, coming back from the World Cup. But for Leicester, I feel that 13th will be probably a reasonable position due to the fact they had a very crap start to the season, but then getting back into winning form. You can see them bouncing back up to 10th, possibly. That could happen. You know, they are capable of winning matches though. They even beat Wolves 4-0, they did, during this season so far as well, away from home. So that's a bonus for them. But in a way, at the moment, I think it will be Leicester City will finish 13th in my predictions going into May. So it will be 13th, Leicester. In 12th position that I predicted and the computer predicts into this into the second part of the Premier League season will be Leeds United. Well, Leeds, they're a bit of a roller coaster team, to be honest with you, Leeds United. They've been like that even last season as well. Even the team who was struggling or could have got relegated last season and might have been going down to the Championship. But this Leeds team can win matches now, you know, in this third season in the top division. Obviously under Bielsa, he left, Jesse Marsch came in, he kept them in the league as well last season. In this new season, they've done incredibly well at the start. They beat Wolves 2-1. They did struggle around September, October time. They did struggle to win matches, and the big surprise, they beat Liverpool 2-1 at Anfield, was a massive win for Leeds this season so far for them. And they are capable of beating the big teams, and even are capable to try and challenge the top 10 teams. I do think Leeds can do that under Jesse Marsch. I know that there's a lot of speculations, even when he lost a few games, that he'll be sacked. But I feel that with this Jesse Marsch and the team as well, all together, they might have lost Rafinha and Phillips and the key players from last season. They have actually got in Somerville, the Netherlands forward. He's one of the players that I actually like, to be honest with you, at Leeds. He's scoring a lot of goals so far for the Leeds team. And you've got him, you've also got if Bamford's fit as well, that'll be something they need to look at as well, if Bamford be fit for the Leeds, because he's been injured quite a few times. If they can keep him fit as well, will be good for the finishers up front. They've got Arison as well, the American midfielder that March signed in the summer transfer window, and he's a good player, young player as well, a real proper young player that will have a good future at Leeds for a couple of years unless a big team buys him. And they still got that strong team, maybe from the Bielsa team, and also into the American style they've got in their team under Jesse Marsch. But I feel that Leeds will finish 12th in the Premier League, and they will be getting a lot of few results going into the second part of the season. So I reckon 12th, Leeds. In the 11th position that I'm predicted in May is Crystal Palace to finish 11th position. Well, Palace, of course, have done incredibly well after losing Roy Hodgson way back in 2021, and last season Vieira took his reign and he done incredibly well last season to finish 12th position in the Premier League. And now this season so far, before going into the World Cup, he's done an incredible job as well in terms of keeping the team as it is. Results never changed, no bad results in terms of struggling for relegation. At the moment, as it stands at the moment in the Premier League, it's fantastic in a way. And obviously with Wilfried Zaha, is he going to be fit enough going into January and going to the second half of the Premier League season? Yes, he is fit. Obviously he's not even part of any World Cup team, even the Ivory Coast. They're not even in the World Cup competition. So he'll be fit going into the whole World Cup period with no matches to play and nothing worries for him. So I'm going to go for Palace to finish 11th position in the Premier League for this second part of the Premier League predictions. So it'll be Palace 11th. My Premier League prediction in 10th position to predict in the second part of the season, and what the computer predicts as well to finish 10th in May this year, is West Ham United. Well, West Ham at the moment are sitting in 16th position as it stands at the moment, and not doing very well in terms of results. I think in the games they've done incredibly well to play and dominate the other team. The only problem they've got is results, and that's the huge problem for West Ham United so far before the World Cup begun. And for them to try and get results after the World Cup in Boxing Day and going forward all the way up to May is something that I think West Ham are capable to do. You know, they're not the worst teams in the Premier League. They're not in any worst teams. They're probably the mid-table team anyways, West Ham are. You know, last season they did come 7th in the Premier League last season, got a Europa Conference League position. They did play that this season. They actually won every single match in the Conference League to put them into the round of 16 of the Conference League in March time. But since no European games are in their horizon now, going into December all the way up to March, they've got no worries at all, and they can really focus on the Premier League, especially to try and win every match as possible to stay in the Premiership. I think West Ham are capable to stay up. I think there's no problems of them to be around that in May, and I do put them in 10th position. Even the computer has put them in 10th position. So I'm going to go for West Ham to finish 10th in the Premier League very smoothly and fairly. And if they can keep their team together, you know, with no injuries or suffer for the World Cup and that, then they'll be absolutely fine. And I think it will be West Ham to finish 10th of the Premier League for this season. In 9th position in the Premier League to predict going into May, like the computer predicts that I predict also, will be Fulham to finish 9th. Well, I did put Fulham to be relegated in my summer predictions of the Premier League to finish in 19th position, but this season's a complete difference. You know, I actually thought that Alexander Mitrovic will struggle. I thought that he will have a bad Premier League bounce, like he goes in the Championship, scores a lot of goals, goes into the Premier League, and then not score many goals, and then they end up getting relegated. That happens every time for them, yo-yo club. But they've proved me wrong on yo-yo clubs, and they are incredibly well. They're doing so well in the Premier League at the moment. They are currently sitting in the top half of the table as it stands at the moment in the Premier League. And to have them to finish 9th in the Premier League this season, to have them to not have any relegational fears, that's astonishing, and it's a good achievement under Marco Silva and also for the whole Fulham team. And they've done very well, they have. And if they can keep the results, winning games and picking up results from Christmas all the way up to May, and get a good cup run, maybe in the FA Cup perhaps, so that'll be something that Fulham will be very proud of. But I think 9th will be a good position to be, and I'm going to go for Fulham to finish 9th in my Premier League predictions halfway through this season. In 8th position that I'm predicting, and the computer predicts going into May, in my halfway of the Premier League season predictions that I'm going for, is Aston Villa to finish 8th. Well, Aston Villa, they had a very poor start to the season. Obviously, Steven Gerrard was in the helm at Villa Park. He did pick up obviously a couple of results, as he probably would do, because Villa are a big team and that. But when Steven Gerrard got sacked. They got in Unai Emery, a guy that I'm familiar to as I'm an Arsenal fan. He's managed Arsenal and he did almost got Arsenal into the top 4, but failed to do that, and he was sacked the season after from having poor results and that. And they went to Villarreal. He won the Europa League. Like, he always loves winning Europa Leagues everywhere he goes, apart from not winning it with us. But of Aston Villa, however, to have him to go to Villa, that's a huge pedigree. He's a huge pedigree. And Villa fans will be very proud themselves to have a guy like him, a real proper world-class manager. He's a world-class manager. Maybe he wasn't good at Arsenal, maybe he wasn't fit for the Arsenal regime, but for Aston Villa, they are lucky to have him, because in a way, that Villa are a big team. They're a big club in the 80s. He won the Champions League in 1982, like 40 years ago now. And for having them to have Unai Emery, a guy who won 4 Europa Leagues, and that is astonishing. It's big, it is, and they've got to give him time. They've got the January market if they want to buy any players in and that, and they've got all the way up to May if they want to try and win every single match to might qualify for Europa League for their next season. But I don't think they will do in my predictions. I'm going for them to finish a place below the Conference League positioning, because there are very tough teams above them who are stronger teams, like Chelsea, the Spurs, the Newcastles, that I'm thinking that they're going to be a real proper destroyable team in the years to go by after the rich millionaires and whatnot. But for Villa to finish 8th will be a sensible position to finish. I know a lot of people probably predict now, since Emery's came in, to put them into the Europa League qualification already straight like that, but I don't think that's going to happen now. I think they're going to miss out by 1 place they're going to, and I'm going to think that Villa will finish 8th in the Premiership. If they can buy some players in the January market to strengthen their team, and they can win every single match and might get into European places, that's a huge achievement in Unai Emery's first season as manager for Aston Villa. So I'm going to go for 8th Villa. In 7th position to qualify in the Europa Conference League position that I'm predicting, it will be Chelsea. It's a funny one why I put Chelsea in 7th position. Well, Chelsea, since Roman Abramovich has left the club as an owner, they got Todd Bowley, a guy who he is willing to spend the money, of course. He's not like a guy who is not pumping enough money into the club and all that. It's nothing to do with that. I just think that the Chelsea regime is really out of date, meaning that they were a successful team and now they're more got their own identity now after when Roman Abramovich left the club. And to have him, Graham Potter, to lead the club after when Thomas Tuchel was sacked in September, it's a big two shoes to fit in for Graham Potter, a guy who's never been experienced manager to manage a top big 6 team in the Premiership. So in a way, it's something that he's trying to learn from and learn and develop as a coach, to learn as a proper Chelsea manager, maybe so in the years to go by. But this season, I don't think they are going to be nowhere near the top 4. Obviously they've got some dead players like Aubameyang, a guy that I'm a big fan of. Obviously he's played for Arsenal, but he's old and dry at Chelsea. You've got obviously Thiago Silva, who is 37 years of age, and he needs to obviously leave as well, and he's out of date as a player as well. And they've got some older players, very older players in their team, and they haven't really. And also Cesar Azpilicueta as well, another guy. He's been at Chelsea for a very, very long time as well, and they've got so many more players that are so out of date. And they've got Sterling's a quick player in the team. They've signed in the summer transfer window, and they might have got Koulibaly as well, but that's nothing that isn't for Chelsea. And I just think that they're going to end up finishing 7th position in the end of this Premier League campaign. So I'm going to go for 7th Chelsea in my mid-season predictions. My Premier League prediction for 6th position in the halfway of the Premier League predictions, we are going to go for Spurs. Controversial. Why I put Spurs in 6th? Because at the moment they are sitting in 4th position as it stands at the moment. Well, their team, they didn't do bad at the start of the season. They did pick up loads of wins and they were top of the table. They were competing with Arsenal and Man City. And then the wheels fell off around October and they lost to Newcastle 2-1 at White Hart Lane. They were on the verge of getting dropped into the Europa League position, but they did qualify at the end of the round of 16 of the Champions League against Marseille, and they were scrapely qualified in that. But in the second part of the season, having Harry Kane probably tired out from the World Cup, obviously representing our country, England, and to come back and play for the Spurs will be very difficult for a player like him, a talisman like him. With injury he could end up having, and the tiredness on his legs from travelling as well and training for England, and also playing for the Spurs team. That'll be a big problem, I think, for the Spurs team itself as it stands. That's why I put him in 6th position, and wonder why the computers, they predicted also 6th position as well. And there's not just Harry Kane as well, but also, Song he was playing in the World Cup for Korea. He has some issues with his eyesight and injury he was suffering for. Maybe that might be too much for him, perhaps so for the Spurs team itself. And also most of the Conte as well demands as well more players, and can Spurs give him the money for January to buy more players in the January market? Because in a way, if they can do that, then maybe they could push towards 4th position. But as it stands at the moment, and from Harry Kane probably getting more tired, and I reckon he'll have a few hamstring problems and injuries he might suffer during this season. That'll be a big blow for Spurs. And that calendar as well of World Cup and having the football back on Boxing Day, and the players get a bit tired as well, and even going into the season. I'm not saying that because I'm being biased because I'm an Arsenal fan and whatnot. I'm saying that as well because Spurs have got more, probably have more bottle jobbers, more like, in fact. That's why I feel that they're going to probably bottle even more. And not just saying that as well, but Newcastle as well, and also Man United. Those two teams, I reckon they're going to really do incredibly well in the second part of the season as well. Obviously under Eddie Howe. In the first part of the season, they won loads of matches. They only lost one game this season against Liverpool at Anfield, but all the other matches were draws at the start of the season. But every match since, from October until November before the World Cup began, were all victories in a way. And for them to be a stronger team with the money they've got from the ownership and Saudi Arabian takeover from last year, and also from Man United, of course, haven't got Ronaldo in their team to worry about, and they can focus on the future now, what Ten Hag wants. And he's a very, very good coach, and I think the United team have got a grip, from Ten Hag's methods, and they're going to really go far in this Premier League. That's why I put in Spurs in 6th position. And now, speaking about Newcastle and Manchester United, who out of the two teams will finish in 4th or 5th in the Premier League? Without no Champions League experiences in the past, and to put in 5th position, I'm putting Newcastle to finish 5th, and I'm putting Manchester United to finish 4th. But we'll start with Newcastle first because they're the team below Man United are in the Premier League table predictions. The computer says they're going to finish in 5th. I think they're going to finish in 5th position as well. Here's why. Okay, Newcastle a year ago, they got took over by Saudi Arabia. Saudis took over the club, and they did survive at the end. They did come 11th for the table last season, and even my predictions that I put in the summer, that I think they were going to finish 8th in the Premier League. I'm thinking they're going to be pushing more into 8th, into the top 4, top 5 in the Premier League, just because I just think that this Newcastle team, they haven't got European football to worry about. They haven't got no European football whatsoever to worry about, nothing to worry about in that. And they're going to be more focused really on the Premier League games, and even the FA Cup as well, going into January. Because in a way, under Eddie Howe, they've really done incredibly well. They've done in terms of the squad, the development for a whole year since they've been took over by the Saudi Arabians, and having Eddie Howe took over the club as well. I can see the Newcastle team are believing each other, and the spirit they've got in the team, and that togetherness they've got for a long time that Newcastle never ever had. And that's going to really go on throughout the whole Premier League season. And some of the players did play in the World Cup as well, but I didn't really hear the injuries Newcastle worried about, just really specifically. So in a way, like Almiron wasn't in the World Cup at all, he plays for Paraguay, and Maximan wasn't even playing in the World Cup at all, as he's injured at the moment, but I think he's back for Newcastle. And also obviously Callum Wilson was in the World Cup squad, but he wasn't playing any games apart from one game against Iran. So in a way, they've got less players who are playing in the World Cup, and they've got no European football to worry about themselves. But I think it'll be Newcastle to finish 5th in the Premier League in my mid-season predictions. In the top 4, in 4th position, now I'm predicting to finish 4th in the Premier League is Manchester United. Well, Man United, however, they lost Ronaldo. That's good for Man United, actually, because he's a big ego. Ronaldo is a huge ego in the dressing room. And, you know, the press and, you know, like the media keep on telling Ten Hag and putting pressure on him as well. And also the United team about Ronaldo this, Ronaldo that, Ronaldo suspended, Ronaldo's being captain, Ronaldo's ends up walking out of the stands into the dressing room, walks out before the games, and Ronaldo's this, Ronaldo's that. Ten Hag now doesn't need to not worry about that now after when he's been released of his contract as a player for Manchester United. They can move on, they can, from Ronaldo, they can, and move on to better things to come. And I think without Ronaldo out of their heads, I think Man United will win loads of matches. Ten Hag's a very good coach. People say that, oh, he did well because he was at the Eredivisie and he played in the easiest leagues in European football, the Dutch league, because Ajax is only a one-club team. Yeah, I understand that as well, but he got Ajax into the semi-finals of the Champions League 2 or 3 years ago that he did. And also, he's good at making younger players even top-class players. He's doing that at the moment with the likes of having Rashford to be playing good football. I know he's not young, very, very young, but he's really given his confidence back, and he's now scoring goals for the first time. It wasn't that last season under Ralf Rangnick and Solskjaer. He's a complete different animal onto the pitch. He is Marcus Rashford. You know, Sancho is playing good football for Man U. They've got obviously Anthony they signed from Ajax as well. He's a very, very promising player in the future for Man United. And they've got so many extra more players will perform and win games. Even Elanga, a young player for Man United, will probably end up being maybe a top player in the future that Ten Hag might even have in the whole squad. But, you know, not having Ronaldo in the team now, not having bossing Ten Hag about, I think that they're going to really worry about results, and I think they're going to win loads of matches now with no pressures on them. So I'm going to go for 4th, Man U. In 3rd position in the Premier League for this mid-season predictions, in 3rd place, I'm going to go for Liverpool. Well, Liverpool have not done great at all during the start of the season. At the moment, they are sitting in 6th position at the moment. I never, ever felt Liverpool are in this position at the moment, in 6th position under Jurgen Klopp. I thought Liverpool will finish top 2 in the Premier League, no worries, win every single match, and But they've lost Sadio Mane in the summer transfer window. They've got in Darwin Núñez, they've signed him, and he's scored quite a few goals for Liverpool. But it takes time for a player like Darwin Núñez to gel into the Liverpool team. And in a way, not just that as well, but I feel that there's a lot of players are getting a bit older now in the Liverpool team, like the likes of Jordan Henderson's now 31 now. Virgil van Dijk's 31 as well. You've got James Milner who's like 36 years of age as well. And there are some few Liverpool players are getting to their peak or getting a bit older, and there's probably time that they've got to move on as well, and that's probably why that Liverpool end up struggling. Even Salah, I forgot about him as well. He's obviously 30 now as well, and he's a bit older now. So they've got some older players compared to they were like 2-3 years ago when they won the Premier League title in the COVID season. But I do think they're going to finish at 3rd because I think Liverpool are still a good team. I still think Liverpool are a strong team. Even they are having a very poor start to the season. They even beat Bournemouth 9-0 they did against, even made Parker get sacked as manager for Bournemouth. In a way, they beat them 9-0, and in a way, Liverpool are still a good team, really. I don't see them competing for the Premier League title, no, I don't think so, but Champions League, definitely, got to be, you know. I just think that Liverpool finished 3rd at the table. Even though Jurgen Klopp's 7th season, he might have lost to Arsenal 3-2 at the Emirates, he might have lost to Leeds, 2-1 at Anfield, but again, I just think that Liverpool's still got a stronger squad to finish in the top 4, so I'm going to go for 3rd, Liverpool. In 2nd position, that I'm predicting in the Premier League mid-season predictions after the World Cup will be Arsenal. I know it's a tough ask. I'm an Arsenal fan myself. I want Arsenal to win the Premier League title. I really do. I'm really hoping that this is our season. We are at the moment at the top of the league as it stands at the moment. We are 5 points clear from Manchester City. But here's the catch. We've got a smaller squad compared to Manchester City's squad. We've got to think about that as well. We've got a small young team who's trying to build into a top 4 team under Mikel Arteta, and I can see that. I really can see that as well. You know, obviously Jesus is now disappointingly injured after that injury he suffered in the World Cup for Brazil. He'll be out for like a month or two, and that's bad, and that's a shame for us to lose a player like him. But again, we've still got a young squad of players. We only got not many players in our first team squad, and that's going to be a big blow for us, I think, going to the second part of the season. I don't think we're going to miss out on Champions League football. I just think that we'll still get in the top 4, because our start to the season has been one of the best starts of Arsenal for the first time since probably 2007 and 2008 season. That was the time when Arsenal had a very, very, very good season ahead. And since then, you know, ups and downs through the years of Wenger, you know, under Unai Emery, Arteta in his first 2 seasons in charge. But now under Arteta now, he's got a good team he has. He probably needs now to buy 3 or 4 players in the January market if they've got any chance on trying to win the Premier League title and try and compete with Man City this season. But I just think that it'd be a big ask for a team like Arsenal with a smaller squad compared to Man City's. You've got to think that in a logical sense, and I think that will be Arsenal to finish second in May in my mid-season predictions. At the top of the table, I did predict them to finish third at the start of the season, and even now in the mid-season predictions before coming back after the World Cup will be Manchester City. Well, Man City have got a very big squad. I've said that about the Arsenal prediction. They've got a big squad, but Erling Haaland scored at least 18 goals already. Already this season he scored 18 goals or 16 goals in the Premier League. He's a top goal scorer. He's a goal machine, he is, Erling Haaland. And to be honest with you, if you keep him down and if he's injured or hurt or whatnot, maybe Arsenal might get an advantage out of Man City, and maybe they might get the advantage out of Man City if most of the players get injured during maybe after the World Cup and after, you know, players coming back from the World Cup and getting a bit injured, you know, and not feeling that right in the head and that. We might be out, could be out, it could be in May, but I've got to think that Man City have got a bigger team. They've got a bigger team compared to Arsenal. You've got to bear that in mind. But however, I just think that they've got a more of a stronger squad compared to Arsenal. So I reckon that Man City will claim the Premier League title for a 3rd season running, and it will be Man City will win the Premier League title in my mid-season Premier League predictions. If you want more of this content, of these videos, please leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and the games will take place in a couple of days from now at Boxing Day. And also on behalf of TGI Gamer, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to all the viewers who watch my videos on my channel as well. Make sure you have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year as well from myself here doing the predictions here today. Peace out.